So till now we have seen in the pre-operative evaluation of the history aspects of the anesthesia that the patient will be giving us. We have seen about the physical examination of the patient, the airway examination of the patient. Also we have done the lab workup of the patient. Now we have stratified the patient according to ASA classification as well. Now the patient is taking some medicines or the medicine orders that you are going to give to the patient, whether he is to be nil per oral for how many hours, if the patient is on any medicines, so whether he should continue those medicines or he should stop those medicines, when he should continue those medicines and when he should stop the medicines, whether those medicines will have any interactions with the anesthesia that we will be giving to the patient. Let us look into that. So patient on any pre-existing drug therapy. Patient is on any pre-existing drug or medicines. So let us look into the details of all the categories of drugs that the patient can take, because nowadays with the advancement of the medical facilities, more and more geriatric population is coming for surgery, and we are undertaking more and more cases of geriatric population. Those patients usually have some or the other comorbidities. If these patients are having some or the other comorbidities, that means they are taking some of the other medicines, be it for high glucose level, that is for diabetes mellitus, be it for high blood pressure, that is for hypertension, be it for their asthma, be it for their any other replenishment that the patient is suffering from any disease. So whether we are supposed to continue with that medicines or stop, let us look into the detail with each medicines. First, we'll look into the common aspects of the medicines that the patient suffers with the comorbidities in a day-to-day life. First is, patient is on antihypertensive. That is antihypertensive medicines. If the patient is taking antihypertensive medicines, whether we should continue with the medicines or we should stop. Suppose till now, what was the norm? In the antihypertensive also, calcium channel blockers, beta blockers were to be continued till the day of surgery. But AC inhibitors, angiotensin receptor antagonists, we were asking the patient to stop it. Why? Because when we are giving central neuraxial blockade to the patient, because of these AC inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blocker, the patient may have a profound hypotension intraoperatively after instituting central neuraxial blockade. But nowadays, with the advent of newer drugs, and we are able to better manage the patient's blood pressure intraoperatively, we do not ask the patient to stop any of the medicines. Okay, so all the antihypertensive, what are the drugs that the patient may take? Antihypertensives like beta blockers, like calcium channel blockers, even angiotensin receptor antagonist and angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, AC inhibitors, or patient is on ARBs. All these medicines are to be continued. I'll write CT for continued, okay. All these medicines are to be continued till the day of surgery. No need to stop them, okay. The second important medicine that we look for the patient is, if the patient, the comorbidity that we come across is diabetes mellitus. If the patient is on any oral hypoglycemic agent for diabetes mellitus, or the patient is on any insulin therapy. So, patient of suffering from diabetes mellitus, if he is taking oral hypoglycemic agent or he is taking insulin, so whether we are supposed to stop it or we are supposed to continue it. All the oral hypoglycemic agents for the patient who is on diabetes, who is suffering from diabetes mellitus, whether he is on oral hypoglycemic agents or he is on insulin, should be stopped on the day of surgery. So, I'll mention it in bold letters. OHAs are to be stopped or withhold on the day of surgery, okay. And suppose if the patient is coming for major surgeries and he is on oral hypoglycemic agent, Major surgeries means in which there will be fluid shifts. Suppose the patient is coming for laparotomy or excision of, that is lap anterior resection, patient is suffering from CA stomach or CA sigmoid colon, and that part of the patient is to be resected. That is a major surgery. The patient is on oral hypoglycemic like metformin. Now the patient should be stopped with metformin and will be shifted to insulin prior to surgery. Okay, so OHAs and insulin both are to be stopped or withheld on the day of surgery. Stop or withhold OHAs and insulin on the day of surgeries. If the patient is coming for any major surgeries and he is on oral hypoglycemic agent, stop OHA, shift the patient on insulin at least 2 to 3 days prior to surgery, and insulin also should be stopped on the day of surgery. This will help us in tight control of blood sugars. Now you will ask me, sir, why do we stop insulin or OHA on the day of surgery if you want tight control of blood sugars? See, in the preoperative period, we keep the patient nil per oral. That is, we don't allow the patient to eat or drink anything at least 6 to 8 hours prior to surgery. Now the patient is fasting for 8 hours. On top of that, you will give an insulin. For 8 hours fasting, already the blood glucose is going down. On top of that, if you give insulin, the blood glucose will go even further and patient may land up into hypoglycemic state. So anytime during the intraoperative period or even during the normal life, hypoglycemia is more detrimental and dangerous than hyperglycemia. Already the patient is fasting, the patient is suffering from some disease that will add on to that, and you are stopping insulin. So that will help you in corrective measures for and help in avoiding the hypoglycemic state in that patient. If you are giving insulin in a fasting patient, it will lead to hypoglycemia and further detrimental state of the patient. So diabetes mellitus, if the patient is suffering, OH and insulin should be stopped on the day of surgery. Apart from that, the drugs which are to be continued, we'll look at the last aspect. Okay, all the drugs which are to be continued. The next aspect of drugs which we come across nowadays very frequently are the anticoagulants. So we'll take that in a separate heading itself altogether. Anticoagulants, whether they are to be stopped or whether they are to be continued. So anticoagulants. With the advent of better intervention techniques, nowadays, because of the sedentary lifestyle, we are seeing more and more cardiovascular patients, particularly the patients who have undergone PCI in the past, or the patient who have undergone any of the wall replacements in the past, or the patient who has undergone any bypass surgeries in the past, cardiac bypass grafting, CABGs. So these patients are to be continued on some or the other anticoagulants, and when these patients come up for the surgery, they pose a challenge to the anesthesiologist. So the drugs on which the patient is on and how and when is that drug to be stopped, let us look into the details of that. The first drug that we come across very frequently is aspirin. Nowadays, with this low dose aspirin, that is 75 milligram, we can continue the aspirin very safely. So it is to be aspirin, low dose, no contraindication to anesthesia, no contraindication to central neuraxial blockade, regional anesthesia, can be continued safely in the perioperative period. Okay. Second medicine that we come across routinely is clopidogrel. Clopidogrel is to be stopped. How many days prior to surgery? At least 5 to 7 days, 1 week prior to surgery. Okay. Clopidogrel, stop how many days? 5 to 7 days prior to surgery. All the drugs which I am writing with the red pen, consider it that they are a no zone area, no go area. Stop 5 to 7 days prior to surgeries. Okay. Coming to the other novel anticoagulants, before that, let us deal with the third thing. If the patient has undergone any wall replacements in the past, a patient who is 36-year-old female was suffering from rheumatic heart disease and has undergone a mitral valve replacement, and that patient is now on warfarin. that patient is taking warfarin regularly. Why do we take warfarin? To maintain the INR level of 2 to 3 in some cases, and even in some cases 3 to 4. That depends upon the cardiologist and cardiac surgeon who and what type of valve it is. Okay, so in order to avoid any thrombosis of the valve. So if the patient is taking warfarin and the patient comes to you with the fracture of tibia, and you have to take that patient up for surgery. 36-year-old female, mitral valve replacement, patient is on warfarin. You have to take that patient for surgery of tibia fracture, for tibia nailing. When do you ask the patient to stop warfarin, or you ask the patient to continue with warfarin? This is how they frame the MCQs. Whenever the patient is on warfarin, we should stop it at least 4 to 5 days prior to surgery. Stop warfarin 4 to 5 days prior to surgery. Why do we ask the patient to stop warfarin 4 to 5 days? Because in these 4 to 5 days, the INR will normalize and you can take up that patient safely for surgery without causing any much bleeding, as well as you can safely institute central neuraxial blockade to that patient. But you should perform coagulation profile, particularly the INR test in that patient. In 4 to 5 days, that INR from 3 to come down less than 1.5. 1.5 is the limit which you should not cross for performing any central neuraxial blockade. Otherwise, the patient will add up into the category of absolute contraindication of central neuraxial blockade, in which he is having coagulopathies. Okay, so that will be a no-go zone for us. So stop warfarin 4 to 5 days prior to surgery. What is another type of drugs that we use nowadays? More and more novel anticoagulants like GP2B and 3A inhibitors like abciximab, eptifibatide and tirofiban. Of those, eptifibatide and tirofiban, it is to be stopped just 8 hours prior to surgery. Okay, the last dose whichever you are taking, just skip that dose. Stop 8 hours prior to surgery, that's it. Otherwise, you can continue it before 8 hours, you can give it. So stop 8 hours prior to surgery, that is the last dose whichever you are taking, you should stop it. The other anticoagulants that we spoke of right now was abciximab. Abciximab is also supposed to be stopped 48 hours prior to surgery. Stop it 48 hours prior to surgery. So, what are the anticoagulants that we have seen? Aspirin, clopidogrel, warfarin, eptifibatide, abciximab, tirofiban. What are the rest of the things that is pending? If the patient is on warfarin and we ask the patient to stop for 4 to 5 days, but in that 4 to 5 days, there are chances that the patient may land up into again thrombosis of the valve, right? So, you have to supplement and cause a bridge so that the blood of the patient is not clotting on that valve, the patient which we are taking for the surgeries. So that bridging therapy is done by heparin or low molecular weight heparin. So coming to the next type of drugs, which is heparin. Heparin, if it is unfractionated, you just stop it 6 hours prior to surgery. Stop 6 hours prior to surgery. Suppose you have to take up the patient for anesthesia at 8 o'clock in the morning, you stop it just 1 day prior. The last dose which was given was supposed to be given midnight 12 am 1 day prior to the surgery. Otherwise, you can continue with unfractionated heparin till 6 hours before you are giving any central neuraxial blockade or peripheral neuraxial blockade to that patient. Now suppose you are giving low molecular weight heparin, LMWH. Suppose you are giving low molecular weight heparin like fondaparinux and all. Those are supposed to be stopped 12 to 24 hours before the surgery. To 24 hours before the surgery. So, if you take up these patients before the allotted time which is mentioned, for the surgery and you accidentally land up giving anesthesia in the form of central neuraxial blockade. A patient is on warfarin and you missed out on this and you have not seen the INR of the patient. You give central neuraxial blockade like epidural or spinal to this patient. What will happen? It may cause a spinal or epidural hematoma, and post-operatively, if that hematoma is so big enough, the patient will become quadriplegic because of the pressure of the hematoma on the spinal cord. So this is why you should know these anticoagulants so very well in these patients, and you should know when to stop it before taking up that patient for anesthesia and surgery. So these are all the anticoagulants which you should know in and out for any patient anytime the patient is scheduled for surgery. Very important topic from the MCQ point of view, which has been asked very frequently. Nowadays what they are asking is aspirin more frequently because the guidelines have changed. Earlier it was to be stopped 3 days prior to surgery, but now they continued. Rest of the oral anticoagulants are to be stopped from 6 hours to 5 to 7 days, and they are labeled as given here. Clopidogrel 5 to 7 days, warfarin 4 to 5 days, eptifibatide, tirofiban 8 hours, abciximab 48 hours, heparin unfractionated to be stopped 6 hours prior to surgery, LMWH at least 12 to 48 hours the last dose should be given before you take up that patient for surgery. So these are the medicine orders that you will give to the patient before the patient is taken up for the surgery after your pre-op assessment. What are the other drugs? Let us look into that also. So till now we have seen about antihypertensives. We have seen about oral hypoglycemics and insulin. We have seen about anticoagulants. Now let us see about the other drugs. The other drugs that are to be stopped is lithium. Lithium is given for particularly maniac disorders, patients suffering from maniac disorders. Lithium is to be stopped 2 to 3 days prior to surgery. Okay, 48 to 72 hours prior to surgery. The MCQ which was asked was lithium. A patient is suffering from maniac disorders and is under the treatment with lithium. When are you supposed to stop this drug? 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours or 96 hours. Now when we mention 2 to 3 days, ideal time to be stopped is 48 hours prior to surgery. That means minimum 24 to 48 hours should be given for the effects of lithium to be reversed in this patient. Next, after lithium, what do we give for antipsychotics is MAO inhibitors. MAO inhibitors, they are to be stopped for 3 weeks prior to surgery. Okay, I'll write it in black or red bold letters so that you understand. Stop 2 to 3 days prior to surgery. For MAO inhibitors, you stop it 3 weeks. What are the other antipsychotic agents that is preferred nowadays? Those are serotonin reuptake inhibitors, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. These drugs have got no contraindication and can be continued perioperatively. Okay, these drugs can be continued till the day of surgery very safely. What are the other drugs? MAO inhibitors, lithium, anticoagulants, oral insulin and antihypertensive. Apart from this, the drugs which we come across day-to-day lives are patients suffering from thyroid medications or thyroid disorders is on thyroid medicines. That patient, either she is hyperthyroid or hypothyroid. Whether she is taking L-toxin for hypothyroidism or she is taking PTU, that is propylthiouracil for hypothyroidism, the patient has to be continued with the same drug. Okay, antithyroid medication should be continued till the day of surgery. Other drugs, steroids, whether they are to be continued or they are to be stopped. Yes, they are to be continued till the day of surgery. You will continue steroids till the day of surgery, and even you will replenish. If suppose the patient is suffering from some chronic diseases on which the patient is taking steroids chronically, of particularly when do we call the patient taking or dependent on steroid chronically when the patient is taking steroids since last more than 3 weeks, be it for his asthma or any immunomodulator or autoimmune diseases. If the patient is on steroids, you will continue that steroids and also replenish it or give the extra dose intraoperatively. Okay, so steroids are to be continued and given additively in the intraop period as well. Coming to the next class of drugs, which is oral contraceptives. Whether we should continue with oral contraceptives or stop. There are two types of oral contraceptive. One is estrogen containing pills, the other is progesterone containing pills. Estrogen containing pills and progesterone containing pills. Earlier with oral hypertensives, oral contraceptives, patients were given high dose of estrogen therapy with that. Okay, when the patient was taking high dose of estrogen containing oral contraceptives, there were high chances of thromboembolism. Therefore, the estrogen containing oral contraceptives were to be stopped. When should we stop it? At least 4 weeks prior to surgery. At least 4 weeks prior to surgery. What they used to cause? They used to cause thromboembolism in these patients. But nowadays, because of the advent of this progesterone containing pills and low dose estrogen pills, you can safely continue these pills in the perioperative period. You don't have to stop the oral contraceptives. Continue with the oral contraceptives pills. Okay. If the question is framed, a patient, 33-year-old female, is on oral contraceptives, which is progesterone containing pills, answer should be continue the drug till the day of surgery. If the question is framed, 33-year-old female is on estrogen containing oral contraceptive pills, whether you are going to continue, stop the drug 3 days, stop the drug 4 days prior to surgery, 2 weeks or 6 weeks prior to surgery, your answer has to be stop the drugs 4 weeks prior to surgery. So every sentence that I am speaking with pertaining to this topic is so important that a MCQ has been framed with every drug which has been asked or which is present in our day-to-day life, which we come across for all the patients. Apart from this, what is the other category of drugs that you can come across? A patient, particularly in Indian population, these are very rampant patient. Patient is on AKT drugs or anti-tubercular drugs. Whether you will stop or whether you will continue with these drugs, we will continue with this medicine, that is anti-tubercular drugs, anti-cox treatments should not be stopped, they are to be continued. But we will add an asterisk mark, we will add a special note here, we will look for liver function test in this patient prior to taking up these patients for surgery. Because most of our IV induction agents, muscle relaxants in particular, they are metabolized in liver. If the liver enzymes are deranged because of this anti-tubercular treatment, in which they get deranged with the patient who is on anti-tubercular treatment. So we will continue with the same drugs, we will not stop it, but we will look for liver function test in those patients. So this is about all the medicines and the orders that you need to add on before you are taking up the patient for surgeries, and you should tell the patient which of the medicines are to be stopped, which of the medicines are to be continued, and which medicines are to be taken additively like steroids in the perioperative period. Okay, so these are all the medicines that you need to tell the patient which are to be continued. There are 2 more medicines which should be continued in the perioperative period. One is anti-anginal drugs. Something like sorbitrate, if the patient is on, it is to be continued till the day of surgery. You should not stop any of the drugs which are causing a benefit to the patient. The same was with antihypertensive like beta blockers. They are also cardioprotective drugs. Anti-anginal are also cardioprotective agents. So anti-anginal drugs are to be continued till the day of surgery. And the last drug that we should look in this is anticonvulsant. The patient is suffering from epilepsy or seizure disorder, be it because of the intracranial SOL or be it because of any of the other causes of epilepsy. If the patient is on any anticonvulsants and the patient comes to you for operation, you will not stop that drug, be whatever be the reason. So that is also to be continued. Anticonvulsants to be continued for the perioperative period and to be continued even on the day of surgery. So this is all about the preoperative medicines, pre-existing medicines that the patient is on, and whether the patient's medicine is to be continued or to be stopped, a very important topic pertaining to the anesthesia subject as well as with the preoperative evaluation part. So now you have seen about the preoperative medicine orders that you should give to the patient. Now you should tell the patient the fasting guidelines as well. So what are the pre-op fasting guidelines? So pre-op fasting guidelines, you should remember it with the table of 2. Okay, so you can remember it like 2, 4, 6 and 8. Just a table of 2. If you remember, you should be able to give the pre-op fasting guidelines to the patient. So patient should be nil per oral. That means patient should not take anything by mouth. 2 hours prior to surgery, what can the patient take? The patient can take clear liquids. Clear liquids the patient can take. What do you mean by clear liquids? Clear liquids is any liquid through the solution which you can see through and through, like water. You can say it non-pulp containing juices. You can see through and through that. So those come under the clear liquids category. Patient can take little bit of clear liquids 2 hours prior to surgery, but that is also to be stopped at least 2 hours prior to surgery. Okay. The pre-op fasting guidelines are important because you have to actually tell the patient why the patient should be fasting for an elective surgery before the anesthesia is instituted. When we give anesthesia, there are high chances that the patient may regurgitate and the patient's airway reflexes are lost when you give muscle relaxant. So if there is anything inside the stomach of the patient and the patient actually accidentally vomits or regurgitates, that the whatever the regurgitation is there, it may go into the airways of the patient, into the lungs of the patient. That is called aspiration. If aspiration happens under elective surgery, under anesthesia, this is a very legal mishap which you have performed. It is a negligence on your part. So you should ask the patient to stay nil per oral. That is, no amount of food or any of the things should be taken. What hours prior to surgery, you should tell them in detail. So up to 2 hours prior to surgery, patient can take clear liquids like water. For if the patient is bachu, if the patient is a pediatric patient, up to 4 hours prior to surgery, that child can take mother's milk. Mother's milk. Mother's milk can be given to a pediatric patient or to a patient up to 4 hours prior to surgery. Okay, so these are all in hours. 6 hours prior to surgery, what all are the things can the patient take? Patient can take infant formula. Infant formula. Patient can take non-human milk. Human milk is mother's milk, which he can take 4 hours prior to surgery, but non-human milk should be stopped 6 hours prior to surgery. And very, very light meal or pulp containing juices can be taken 6 hours prior to surgery. What about 8 hours fasting guidelines? Patient should not take any heavy meal after 8 hours, okay, or before 8 hours prior to surgery. Heavy meal. What do you mean by heavy meal? All the fried stuffs, all the meals containing oils and all those stuffs should not be taken 8 hours before the surgery. So, suppose a patient is to be taken up for surgery at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, and the patient is to be taken up for thoracotomy, and the patient comes to you in the preoperative room, and the patient says, "Doctor, whether am I supposed to take food at night or whether should I not take the food at night? Or in the morning of the surgery, am I supposed to drink some water?" You should tell him very clearly, a night before the surgery, that is before 11 p.m. at night. See, the patient you are taking up at 7 a.m. in the morning. Before 11 a.m. you can have your meals, that is regular meals. before 1 a.m., if the patient is a pediatric patient, the mother can give non-human milk or infant formula to that patient. If the patient is a child who is less than 1 year of age and is still taking mother's milk, to up to 3 a.m. the patient can take mother's milk. And if the patient is adult or child, if the patient is taking water, he can take water up to 5 a.m. in the morning, little bit sips of water. But this year these guidelines have also changed. The clear liquids guidelines have come down to 1 hour prior to surgery. 1 hour prior to surgery. Earlier it was 2 hours. Now it has come down to 1 hour prior to surgery. Okay, so this is the modification which has happened just this year. But clear liquid should be given only with sips. It should not be like you are taking like gulping 2 or 3 glasses of water. It should be just sips of water which can be taken up to 1 hour prior to surgery. Okay, so these are the pre-op fasting NPO guidelines for the patient which you should tell. And the question which is framed here is, a patient is to be scheduled for surgery at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. The patient's NPO guideline should be, or if suppose he is eating paneer butter masala 1 day before the surgery, he should stop eating PBM before how many hours before the surgery? Your answer should be 4 hours, 6 hours or 8 hours prior to surgery. It is 8 hours prior to surgery because it is a heavy meal. A 7-month-old child is to be taken up for herniatomy. When will you ask the patient to stop mother's milk? 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours or 8 hours? It should be 4 hours before the surgery. So this is also one of the important topics for the NEET PG examination and also the short note for the MBBS students. This is an important guidelines which you should remember. So you should know in detail how to write the pre-operative orders pertaining to the medicines, pertaining to the NPO, that is fasting guidelines pre-operatively. So in the same fasting guidelines and pre-operative orders for the medicines, what will you write? You will write an additional thing which is known as pre-operative medicines, that is pre-medication the patient. What are the pre-medications? And what is the role of pre-medicating a patient? So this also comes under pre-operative evaluation. First and foremost is, because when you take up the patient, when you evaluate the patient, you should develop a rapport of the patient. Any patient who is coming for surgery to you is coming for the, and you are evaluating for the anesthesia aspect, the patient is usually very anxious whenever the patient is coming for surgery. For you, it might be a daily affair. For the patient, it is always the first time. So, first is anxiolysis. How will you allay the anxiety of the patient? That is by non-pharmacological methods. First is reassurance of the patient. By assuring the patient that everything will be well, don't worry, everything will be sorted out, you are in good hands. Reassuring the patient. This will allay most of the fears of the patient. The other drugs that you can use here are pharmacological methods like benzodiazepines can be used for allaying the anxiety of the patient. The second thing, when the patient comes to you, what are the goals of pre-medication? One is, so first is allaying the anxiety of the patient. Second, when the patient comes to you, you can sedate the patient, that is sedative. How will you sedate the patient? You can give the same thing, that is benzodiazepines to this patient by giving benzodiazepines. So what are the drugs that you can give in benzodiazepines? One night prior to surgery you can give tablet lorazepam, tablet diazepam. Just before the patient is taken up for the surgery, 10 minutes prior you can give injection midazolam to the patient, which will act as a sedative and also act as a hypnosis and anxiolysis for the patient. Third thing, what is the primary goal of pre-medication? That is providing analgesia to the patient. How would you provide analgesia to the patient? Particularly of the drugs that we use pre-operatively as well as intraoperatively are opioids. Injection fentanyl just prior to surgery, injection remifentanil just before the surgery is starting, you can give and provide analgesia to this patient. What are the other things that you look for and pre-medicate the patient in the preoperative period? Anxiolysis, sedative, analgesia, an important triad of anesthesia, which is amnesia. You make the patient to forget the difficult memories or horrible situations that he may face in the operating theatre, or which he is considering that he doesn't want to remember anything. Amnesia is also being provided by the same drugs, that is benzodiazepine group of drugs. So these are the various pre-medicines that you can give to the patient pre-operatively for the allaying the anxiety, sedative, amnesia. You can give benzodiazepines. For analgesia, you can give opioids. Now, when the patient comes to you, if the patient is very anxious, the patient may have a lot of secretions. You don't want any secretions when you are giving general anesthesia in particular. So these are under anti-cialogs, or to decrease oral secretions. Decrease oral secretions, or anti-cialogs as they called. What are the drugs that you can give here? You can give anticholinergics like glycopyrrolate or atropine. Question has been asked on this as well. Which is the anti-cialog which you would give for the patient in the pre-medication? The options were glycopyrrolate, atropine, scopolamine, or none of the above. Of the two medicines, that is glycopyrrolate and atropine, your correct answer should be glycopyrrolate. Why? Because it is devoid of any cardiovascular effects. So glycopyrrolate is more preferred than atropine as an anti-cialog, that is, which decreases the oral secretions. What is the other drug that you will give? Other medicines, which is to decrease the chances of aspiration. Decrease the chances of aspiration. Aspiration, as we have already seen, that first what you can do is have the proper preoperative fasting guidelines. Even despite of that, the patient comes to you in emergency, or the patient is full stomach and is coming to you in an emergency, and you don't have the time to optimize the patient or keep the patient fasting for another 8 hours, or pregnant female or uncontrolled diabetic patient whose gastric emptying has been delayed. These patients, how will you decrease the chances of aspiration in such patients? You will give proton pump inhibitors and H2 blockers. What are H2 blockers? Like ranitidine and all. What are proton pump inhibitors? Like ondansetron and all. You can give these drugs to decrease the chances of aspiration in this patient. So all these drugs, all these things also form one of the important topics pertaining to your NEET PG preparation as well, and for the short notes. So if the short note comes, write a short note on the pre-medications in anesthesia. These are the 6 points. In NEET PG examination, they'll ask you any of the following. How will you allay the analgesia, or how will you allay the anxiety of the patient? If you want to decrease oral secretions, what is the drug of choice? It is glycopyrrolate. This is how the questions are framed on pre-medications as well.